Blood and bloody ashes. I can't believe I included this one. You're either going to love or really be absolutely disgusted by this one. Now nothing, and I mean nothing, will be exactly like The Wheel of Time. But there are other incredible fantasy books that are similar to Robert Jordan's masterpiece that are worth your time. Alright, for this first book, like Wheel of Time, it's got companionship. It's got a world with deep history. It's got D&D roots. It's got a badass boss bitch for the big bad. Can you guess what it is? It's the Dragons of Autumn Twilight. Dragons of Autumn Twilight inaugurates one of the great early fantasy series, and it's a very consumable trilogy that won't exhaust you from just looking at it. It's the perfect read, especially when you are coming out of or likely in the midst of reading The Wheel of Time. I recommend it in the spirit of a great, lighthearted adventure that nevertheless has some real risks. It has the best mage in all of fantasy, Raistlin. And it even has the second best mage in all of fantasy, Vistandiltius, whose name I can never really pronounce right, and I probably pronounce differently every time I say it. So basically what happens is, in the wake of a cataclysm, a band of friends will reunite at an inn at the top of a tree. Yes, that's right, at the top of a tree. After some ales and poetry and a chance encounter with some barbarians from the plains, to embark on a quest where their friendships will be tested, as well as their wit, swordsmanship, and ability to roll an excellent saving throw, and a solid magic missile, and an excellent fireball as well, all against the goddess of evil and chaos, Takhisis. Picture this: a dark lord viciously oppresses a land for thousands of years. No, it's not Mistborn. Okay, the next one is kind of like, if you wanted a closer, more in-depth look, sort of like a ride-along with a amoral band of the Red Hand, then you will love The Black Company. A Dark Lord viciously oppresses a land for thousands of years alongside his dark mistress, until they are finally overthrown by a girl named the White Rose, and imprisoned in a place called the Barrowlands, kind of like Sheol Ghul, kind of like the Great Blight, huh? Along with all of their most wicked servants known as the Taken, kind of like the Forsaken, huh? So imagine actually if the Dark One was a evil lady, and much like the Dark One, the evil lady is back doing what she does best, causing chaos and killing off all the competition. But there might be a young girl who can save the world, and she might eventually be a part of this band of mercenaries. She might even be the reborn version of a girl who saved the world the last time this all happened. Sound kind of familiar? Add to the cart, you're welcome. Now that I've said all this, I wonder if The Black Company is just a retelling of The Wheel of Time. The Black Company by Glenn Cook wasn't the beginning, but it was a beginning. Okay, I know you've been waiting for this one. You're saying, where's the book with all the description? Where's the book with all the attention to detail? Where's the book with all the poetry? Where's the book with the prose that is so good we can call it poetry? Well, my friends, Tad Williams has been waiting for you, and his series is called Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn. And the book that you've been waiting for is called The Dragonbone Chair. Now, before we jump into it, I just want to let you know that it doesn't have Trollocs, but it does have a troll. The writing is beautiful, and the poetry is pretty bad decent. And if you're looking for descriptions, Tad Williams has a bunch of descriptions he wants to share with you of castles, castle gardens, long treks through ancient forests, hidden dungeons, forbidden magic done after midnight, dragons, and of course, dangerous magical swords. Oh, and the interior psychology of characters. And I hear you. Trust me, I hear you. This is for the Wheel of Time fans who are like, Dragons of Autumn Twilight is only like 1,600 pages altogether. And The Black Company is only like 7 books total. Well, my fellow Wheel of Time fans, the final book in this series is over 500,000 words all on its own. It's so big, they had to break it into 2 just to get it published. It's actually one of the longest books ever written. So just to wrap up here, like what I really liked actually about Tad Williams, besides like the phenomenal writing, is that the characters go out into the world and they are really kind of like forever changed by it. And last but not least, there's some very clever subversion of fantasy tropes going on. It's really strange that this came out when it did. You kind of almost have to read a bunch of fantasy first before you can really appreciate what's going on in the early chapters of Tad Williams' work. But definitely check it out. Okay, next we have, oh dear. You're either going to really, really love or totally despise this selection. And it is The Darkness That Comes Before. Okay, so this story would be more like a more deadly and also philosophical Mazrim Taim or Logain, or like a false dragon brainwashing people more deliberately. So the Wheel of Time, Mazrim Taim edition. So the story occurs long after the first apocalypse, where a vile god who goes after the Lovecraftian moniker Mogfaru was summoned, and he nearly destroyed everything, as Dark Lords are wont to do. And just as luck would have it, another holy war is gathering, which, if the prophecy is true, will usher in a second apocalypse that a certain sect of mages has long feared would come true. And old Mogfaru will get back to slaughtering faces and burning. Side note, if I ever get a dog, his name's definitely gonna be Mogfaru. Or like 2 of them, right? Mogfaru and Cthulhu. It's like the best dog names ever. Or children. Mogfaru and Cthulhu. Hey, Cthulhu, don't eat that. So the story follows some like really twisted archetypal fantasy characters that we're all familiar with. There's a dissolute mage, 2 harlots, a manipulative warrior monk prophet, a brutal barbarian, and an egotistical emperor, which actually kind of sounds like the setup for a great fantasy joke. This fantasy is definitely darkly tinted and non-Euclidean, which is like the best way I can describe it without giving away too much. There are parts that are like deeply unsettling, and its representation of females won't sit well with our modern moral sensibilities. R. Scott Bakker's prose is somewhere between Tolkien and Jordan. Not as sparse as Tolkien and not as descriptive as Jordan, but sharp, poetic, and observant nonetheless. Add to the cart, you're welcome. How do you spell truly epic? M-A-L-A-Z-A-N-E-M-P-I-R-E. That's right, Malazan Empire. That's right, Malazan Empire. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite fantasy series. It has a vast world of over 700 characters, which is just enough to make most Russian novelists jealous. A deep history, poems adorning every chapter, gods meddling in the affairs of mortals, and a sly implementation of postmodern sentiments. This is the next truly epic fantasy series that should take over your entire life. Add to the cart, you're welcome. I have a confession. I was late. I was a doubter. Then I read Mistborn. I was still a doubter, but I had a good time. Then I read Way of Kings. And I still believe Brandon Sanderson is a time-traveling robot built by Google and sent from the future to complete the works of other fantasy authors. But somewhere along the way, it learned how to write its own amazing fantasy novels, and actually novels in every genre, and doing humble brag author signings while doing Q&A, and also doing a live blog, like weekly. Like, what? So see, it's definitely a robot from the future. But I digress. Now, I believe.
Life before death. Strength before weakness. Journey before destination.
So my final recommendation for those of us searching desperately for books like The Wheel of Time is none other than Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings, which kicks off the Stormlight Archive. Suffice it to say, there's a lot going on in a book this big, but the general setting is that a group of Protectorate knights abandoned humanity 4,500 years ago, and we are dropped into a world that's been at war with itself for the past 5 years based on a really crazy event that happens in the opening of the book. He creates this exciting, genuinely unfamiliar world that isn't a copy and paste of medieval fantasy. Its characters are approachable and have an emotional depth without being like too angsty or maudlin, and each have paradoxes that sort of like drive them, that they're wrestling with. And we get this great perspective of how it sort of like shapes their thinking and how it shapes their dealings with other people and how they have to approach the world, and how it puts them in a very uncomfortable position where they're really kind of like forced to really like act or perish. So have no fear, just jump into it. The series is absolutely worth it. Add to the cart, you're welcome. Add to the cart, you're welcome. Add to the cart, you're welcome.